So let me just say the title of your podcast should be Early Warning. When you go into prepping a movie and you have no idea what the script is, and I mean really no idea, I really mean no idea, think again. It rarely turns out well. And I think it's fair to say that in this case, that rule applies.
Rupert Wainwright was sitting pretty in Hollywood. He had done the near impossible. He convinced a studio to release a film they didn't like and didn't want anything to do with, and it resulted in an $89 million box office gross. Because of his experiences on Stigmata, the fact that his next film didn't have a script probably seemed like small potatoes. 14 years later, however, an unwritten script is a tenet of his reasons not to sign on to a movie. And now, the story of 2005's The Fog.
How does The Fog come about? So after Stigmata, I had a series of development deals, and I also had I was basically put on a go movie, which was The Outer Limits, which was very exciting. The movie was going to be a big, cool sci-fi thriller. MGM put me on it. They put me on a holding deal, paid me a very nice amount of money. It was all great. And then Kirk Kerkorian sold the studio for like the third time, and Sony bought it. And first of all, MGM was going to carry on as an independent entity, but basically nobody kind of knew what was going on. So basically they had enough money to make one big movie that year, not two. They decided to go ahead with Pink Panther, and they said, listen, go away, make a pilot or something, and we're going to make Outer Limits next year. And you're still on, it's all great, whatever. I was kind of bummed about that because I'd already put like a year and a half of work into it, but, all good. So then MGM said, we have this other movie we want to make. It's called Blood and Chocolate. And I said, okay, fine. So I read it, and it was kind of this cool werewolfy movie. And they said, we're making this movie, we're making it with Lakeshore, and it's all good. And let's make this right now, and then we'll go on and we'll make Outer Limits next year. I'm like, okay, fine. This is cool. And then gradually I found out that MGM wasn't actually paying for the movie, that basically they were going to release it domestically, and Lakeshore had to fully finance it. So they were all cool with that. But the one thing is that MGM had control over the casting. So we looked at all these great girls, and many of whom gone on to be big stars. MGM would not approve any of them. And we were just sitting around, not getting the movie made. And I was getting oh my God, this is second time, I felt like Charlie Brown having the ball pulled away again. And then I got a call from my agent who said, Revolution is doing a remake of The Fog, and they love you for it, and it's a go movie, and if MGM doesn't get going, you should just go and make this one. Go in and meet. I said, great, send me the script. And he goes, script? There's no script, you idiot. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, they're doing a rewrite right now. They don't have pages yet, but, it's a remake of The Fog. What do you expect? They have a release date. So let me just say the title of your podcast should be Early Warning. If anyone offers you a movie that has a release date but no script, think again. It rarely turns out well. And I think it's fair to say that in this case, that rule applies. So very simply, I went in and I met, and all I really could say was I took in a DVD, which I played on my laptop, of the green fog that moves around in City of Lost Children. They had this canister, and every time it opened, there was this green fog that was kind of sentient and moved like a snake through the city, and that meant bad things were going to happen. So I just played that for them. I said, kind of like that, right? And they're like, great, let's make the movie. And I'm like, seems a little bit too easy. So I came out and I called my agent. He said, they're offering it to you now, pay or play. It's go. You start tomorrow. I said, but what about MGM and Lakeshore? They're going to be upset. And he goes, all right, let me talk to them. He talked to them. They said, well, we can't go pay or play with you right now because we don't have a cast, but we will do soon and blah, blah, blah. I said, here's the problem. I've been sitting on a movie that was green lit for a year already at MGM, and I can't carry on spending another year not making a movie. So they weren't that happy. But anyway, I said, okay, I'm going to go with Revolution. And basically they said, we're going to release this at Halloween, and this is the movie. We're going to make it for $15 million, and we'll pay you your fee. Off we went.
Wainwright had made his choice. No script on The Fog was better than the combination of constant stalling on Blood and Chocolate and Outer Limits, which makes all the more sense when you consider that Stigmata came out on September 10th, 1999. The Fog's release date was over 6 years later.
And it's very hard to prep a movie without a script. They said, we have a local production manager up there and everything, and she's getting sound stages, and we have a production designer, and everybody's ready to go. And I'm like, okay, what are they doing? Well, it's getting ready. And so I was kind of confused. So the location manager said, what are we looking for? So I just basically went through the old movie and took a bunch of screen grabs and kind of sent them up to him and said, we're going to need a lighthouse, and we're going to need like a church, and we're going to need this, and we're going to need that. Why don't you start looking for them? So then started this whole waste of time, basically trying to tramp around Vancouver to try and find a lighthouse. It was a nightmare. Anyway, so gradually we got a few pages. We got I think 15 or 20 pages just before Christmas, and they were really exciting. It was good. So I'm like, okay, thank God. And then we got some more pages, and the thing about it is not that hard to write 20 good pages at the beginning of a movie. It's much harder to write the next 80. And the movie wasn't quite as tough and good and well organized, and but we were prepping by now. So what I asked the writer to do was, can you please give us an outline, with all the scenes, and then we can go ahead and prep those, because then we'll know we'll have a breakdown. He goes, yeah, I don't want it that way. So anyway, long story short, we started prepping. We had a sort of a script. We had to do a lot of work on the script. Anyway, we had a week of prep, a week of rehearsals. And this was really important because the script had been all over the place. So the writer came up, and he'd just bought a new laptop. This is the most shocking story I've ever heard in my life. He spent a week basically sitting in rehearsals and typing up new pages for the script. And every day I would say, well, why don't you just show us what you're going to do? No, I'm just going to put it all in one place, and give me a couple of days after that, and I'll polish it all up, and then we'll have it, and we'll be ready. I'm like, yeah, but this is not, you're not writing your novel. You're writing a production piece. It's like, and the producer kept on saying, just leave him alone. Let him do his best work. I'm like, okay, all right. So for 5 or 6 days, he attended rehearsals and typed up all these notes, and we gave him, he should say this here. Okay, great, bang, boom, got it all. And then we had a couple more days before we started shooting. We're like, okay, we need the script today. And he goes, does anybody there, like an expert on either Max or Final Draft? We're like, what does that mean? And he goes, well, as I told you, I just got a new laptop. And in my previous copy of Final Draft, it auto-saved every 5 minutes, so I never saved it. And then my computer crashed, and when I came back, none of it was there. I was like, you never saved a single copy. You never saved a single version. Nothing. No, because it was I thought it was auto-saving. So everybody in the office was like an expert. They were like, oh, don't worry, it's going to be in the auto-saved batch. She just doesn't know where to find it. For 2 days, everyone tried to find it. Nobody could get it. He had to start again from scratch. I'm like, oh my God, how does this even happen? How does someone just not do Apple S? Like, I can't even write a sentence without just automatically, my left hand just does Apple S, Apple S, Apple S. So anyway, and we finally cast the talent, and of the 3 main characters, 2 of them basically were in series, and one was in Smallville, and the other one was in Lost. And if you remember, Smallville was being shot in Vancouver, but Lost was being shot in Hawaii. Basically, they would all work like 4 days a week on their shows, and then they would fly in, like the girl would fly in from Hawaii on a red eye, basically come to work Friday morning and have to leave like Sunday afternoon. And that's all we got of her. So it was pretty hard work, and they were exhausted. They were doing their best. It was not a pleasant thing. So anyway, the problem was we were trying to make like a PG-13 movie, which, there's a classic issue of like, do you make an R-rated movie and really satisfy the people who want a horror movie, or do you go PG-13 so you can get the kids? So as you know, you can have very little blood in a movie before you lose your PG-13 rating, and you can say fuck once, I think. And anyway, so it's very restrictive to keep it PG-13. So we were instructed it has to be PG-13. So you have to be kind of like, you have to find different ways of, of like scaring people. You can't just be blood and gore and slashes. Anyway, John Carpenter flew up after about 2 weeks of shooting and sat down in a cafe in the restaurant, in the hotel. And he said, Rupert, I've looked at all the dailies and you're not making a scary movie. And I said, okay, I'm sorry you feel that way. John Carpenter was producing the movie. And he said, no one thinks it's scary enough. I said, well, let me make an R-rated movie like Stigmata and we'll go fucking nuts. And he goes, yeah, I know, but they won't let you do that. I'm like, okay, well, then if it's PG-13, it's got to be different sort of scares. It can't be knives and blood and slitting throats. It just can't be. And he goes, I know, but it's still going to be more scary. And I said, well, we'll make it as scary as we can, but you know what? He was in a bit of a bind because he wasn't very involved. His producing partner was Deborah Hill. Deborah was great, but sadly Deborah was very, very, very ill with cancer. So we would go up to her house and take meetings with her to talk about the script and the casting and everything. Maybe like once a week we would go up there. And she was very feisty, but she was on her last legs. And it was harder and harder and harder to get her best because she was fighting for her life. And in fact, she passed away before the movie finished. And John was like, I'm not saying he was take the money and run, but he was like, it's your movie, you go make it, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to tell you how to make it. I think I met with him during prep. But the problem is that he genuinely didn't really love the movie I was making. And at the same time, he was facing the same conundrum that I was, which was, this is more like a ghost movie, and it's got to be like spooky and scary rather than a slasher movie, but he couldn't do anything about it. Anyway, it was not a fun shoot for anybody. We struggled through it. We got to the end. We then had a very reduced post-production because the studio said, oh, we're going to do all these reshoots. Maybe we've got what we want. We don't think we do. We're going to have to do some reshoots. So I had to go and meet with the Directors Guild, and they said, well, you have 10 weeks to do your edit, your director's cut, and they want to do it in 6, and you have to agree to that. And I said, okay, well, why do they want that? Because they feel they're going to have to do reshoots, and they have a fixed date and all the rest of it. They feel they need time to see the movie early in order to know what to do. I said, okay. And basically at this point, you're being told, do you want to be a pain in the ass, or do you want to be a team player? And you go through all these different thoughts, and yeah, you want to be a team player, but you don't want to be. Anyway, in the end, I said yes. So basically, I then realized that the editor was basically taking notes from the studio and really wanted to make the studio movie, not mine. And basically, once we showed the movie, Joe Roth said, oh yeah, I like that movie. Yeah, it was good. I like it. I don't know whether he's just being polite or not. Gave us some notes. We did another cut. Then they started messing with the music, and it just went on. It was a mess. Anyway, the point of the story is that the movie came out. They gave it like no PR, no premiere, nothing, and it was number 1 at the box office. It beat everybody else. So it wasn't a great experience. I wish I could kind of like be able to point the finger very clearly and say, that's the person who caused it to be a screw up. But I think the problem is when you don't have a script and you have a release date, and then on top of that you cast actors who are busy doing other TV shows or movies or other work, you have very little time with the actors. The script hasn't matured. No one's really signed off on it in many ways. It's a bit like drinking a wine way too early. If it needs 3 years in the oak caskets, and you bring it out after 20 minutes. You're like, oh my God, this tastes like vinegar. Well, guess what it is? Revolution then went under. Every movie they made lost money, apart from The Fog. And, it was done, and I took a bit of time off. It was just a horrible experience. I don't think anybody enjoyed it. I don't think the actors enjoyed it. I don't think the studio enjoyed it. I don't think the director enjoyed it. I know the director didn't enjoy it. I don't wish that experience on my worst enemy.